They're hitting innocent people. Innocent people, babies. Come on now. Come on, brothers, man. We're asking the brothers, man. Y'all, come on now.
You know, when it comes to the violence in our community, there are so many things that have to be done in order to bring that violence level down.
So we, you know, as a people, you know, especially brothers, have to encourage them, give them experience, strength, and hope, and by our testimonies, let them know that it can be done.
Good evening and welcome to this Buffalo Strong conversation focusing on crime in the Queen City. I'm Ashley Rowe. The numbers are staggering, shocking, and frankly heartbreaking. So far this month, 29 people have been shot in the city of Buffalo, and behind each crime scene, each statistic, a devastated family and a fractured community forever changed by a bullet. And when discussing the facts and figures surrounding this topic, we cannot forget the faces like 3-year-old Shaquell Walker Jr. This innocent little boy was enjoying a late-night cookout with his family earlier this month when a gunman fired roughly 38 shots on the Ferry Grider apartment complex. Little Shaquell died from his injuries 3 days later. Over the next half hour, we will be speaking with community stakeholders to get a better understanding of what's fueling this surge in violence, while also examining ways to tackle this complex issue. It is all in the hopes of creating a more peaceful future. Before we get started, we would like to mention that the Buffalo Police Department was invited to be a part of this discussion. They declined, saying no one was available. But right now, I would like to introduce our guest. Pastor James Giles, the president and CEO of Back to Basics Ministries, Billie Webster of Buffalo Peacemakers, and Mia AYERS-GOSS of the organization MVP Most Valuable Parents. I know how busy all of you are, so thank you so much for taking the time to be a part of this discussion. I want to dive right into this. Pastor Giles, I'd like you to kick things off with us this evening. Your thoughts on what is fueling this surge in violence? Why is this happening? Why now?
Well, it's always been happening, as particularly urban communities across the country experience violence. This particular escalation in violence, you know, there are many factors that are contributing to this. It comes on the heels of a COVID experience where everything was locked down. So you have a lot of aggressive energy that exists in the subculture. That means particularly in inner cities. And when you don't give an outlet for that, such as they close all the recreation parks, they close all the gyms, they close all the clubs, they close all of those spaces, you know, where you go off and let off negative energy. You know, those are closed, so it kind of forced the community in this, doing these pop-up parties and those things and gatherings. And when they announce all of that stuff on Facebook and all those other spaces, right, everybody comes out to there because there's nothing else going on. And they're invariably running into people that they're in conflict with. That's just one avenue, but there are many.
Yeah, there are so many. But, you know, we hear that every summer things start to escalate, things start to get worse. Billie, what is going on from your vantage point? Why is it that this summer in particular, this year, seems to just be far outpacing the amount of violence that we've seen in recent years?
You know, Pastor Giles mentioned something that's so key in this violence is what's happening. When we were locked down during the COVID, you know, there was nowhere to go. You know, it's the same thing with pipes. If you keep on pushing pressure and pressure, sooner or later pipes are going to break. That's the same thing with the individuals. You got to understand that when you doing stuff through the summer, through the winter, and you're able to move and maneuver around the city and do different things, but when you shut down and shut in, it builds up a lot. So when you start to get out, the little freedom that you started to get, which they did when they released a lot of stuff during COVID, and the bottom line is this: people have stress issues that they don't deal with. A lot of times we have a lot of trauma in our communities that have not been dealt with. You know, nobody's came in to help these people. You don't have nowhere to go. You don't have no gyms open. You don't have no community centers. The community centers in the city of Buffalo, when I grew up, I can go to the PAL, I can go to the community center, I can release all this pent up energy that I have inside as being a young man at that time, and they don't have anywhere to go to do none of these things. I was told when I was running Snug, you know, I did that for about 7 years, but I was told by all the people I brought in that, man, we need this, we need that, we need to get here, we need to go out, we need some community centers, we need some PALs, some YMCAs open like it was when we came up. We don't even have that. So what are you going to do? How are you going to release that pressure? Pressure got to be released somehow. All that energy in a young man or a young woman they got to release it somehow. So how they release it is popping up them parties Pastor was talking about, and before you know it, someone has said something to someone else, and now the guns start shooting.
Well, you talk about the outreach, you talk about just having an outlet for these people. So let's talk more about that and the grassroots efforts. What, Mia, would you like to see happen next, specifically when it comes to policing and on the grassroots level?
Well, from a grassroots level, I mean, we definitely need to be visible in the streets. We need to have more people on the ground working with the community. We need more programs, as the two young men spoke about earlier. If there's nothing for these young people to do, then they're not going to do anything but get into trouble. You know, my grandmother used to say, an idle mind is the devil's playground. If you don't have anything to do, 9 times out of 10, you're going to get into some type of trouble. So we need more programs, and we have programs, but we have to have funding in order to implement those programs. But the bottom line is we have to get with our young people and we have to educate them. We have to teach them self-love. We have to teach them self-worth. You know, we can arrest people every single day, but there's just going to be another person to replace them until we get to the root cause of the issues, which is dealing with the family unit, dealing with the young people, dealing with the parents. It's going to keep escalating and keep happening.
And I think that you just you hit on something that is so important, talking about that family unit and the parents. I'm going to circle back to that in just a moment. But Pastor Giles, how can your organization, as we talk about these grassroots efforts, getting into the communities, work more closely with the Buffalo Police Department and members of the community to help tackle this issue?
Well, by the way that we're doing, I mean, we work just in terms of tandem with law enforcement, because in our mind, this is a public health issue, a public safety issue. So we are dedicated that, and if we don't begin to engage each other, meaning law enforcement and community and other public officials, if we don't begin to circle the wagons on this, we need everybody at the table, you know. So I can't do this alone and then say, well, we can't mess around with law enforcement. No, they're not on the scene when crimes are committed. They don't know, you know, this is not CSI. They don't have the ability to come in and just through forensics, you know, determine who's doing what. No, they have to kind of have the cooperation of community, have to have the cooperation of other organizations. So yeah, we are trying to stop, together, a collective effort to stop individuals from harming each other. You know, I'm not necessarily trying to see people go to jail, but listen, if you pick up a gun and you don't care about where the bullets are landing, you need to be in jail. In fact, you need to be under the jail. You know, it's tragic, you know, that a young child, 3 years old, never have a chance at life, you know, is taken down and with this senseless shooting.
Yeah. I want to get back to the topic of parents and the family unit. Billie, how important is that in getting into, you know, teaching the parents and collectively working with the parents and the families to try to get this violence under control?
That is key. And, you know, to show you how much key it is, you know, I had a vision that was given to me by God, you know, a while back, some years back, but at the time it wasn't, the time wasn't right for me to start it. I have a program called MAV, M-A-V. We've been started since May of this year. MAV, Mothers Against Violence. We started this program with the mothers because the mothers used to reach out to me when I was doing the snug work. They would reach out and they would tell me about their son. They'd call me 2 and 3 in the morning crying, and I would identify with them because I had a son that was murdered in '93 myself. He was a good kid coming out of a pizza shop. They shot him down and cold-blooded killed him. So it made me want to do this work so hard, and I joined Back to Basics in 1995. They started in '94. And when I did, we was doing this work trying to stop violence for all these years. But this program I started now was key to starting it at this particular time because I had got a vision to do this. And the mothers that have joined this program, not only have they started to heal from losing kids to gun violence, but also to domestic violence, to child abuse, to all this type of violence. They're against all type of violence. Also, this program here is leading them, not just wanting to be in, you know, be out talking to each other in rooms to heal. They want to go in the community. They want to be that voice in the community, them boots on the ground to go in them hard-hit areas with the gun violence and tell them people that's using them guns, I'm a mother. Yep. They want them to see how it feels and what they have been going through in their family from losing someone to gun violence or being abused or beat up or whatever the situation is. So these mothers here, man, I commend them, and I thank God for this program because, and we've been doing it on our own, even with the help of Pastor Giles. He's always willing to be there for you and help any type of organization, you know, that starts out, and that's a great thing for people to come together as one unit and be able to work together. So the bottom line is MAV, the Mothers Against Violence program, is a great program for the mothers because they're beginning to heal. Not only that, they're beginning to speak out because their voices, the mother voices, have always been, you know,
Billie, I'm so sorry to interrupt you. Unfortunately, we have to deal with commercial breaks. I'd love to keep this conversation going, though, on the other side of the break, though. Apologies that I had to interrupt you there. Our Buffalo Strong conversation, crime in the Queen City, is just getting started. Stay with us. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Welcome back to our Buffalo Strong conversation, crime in the Queen City, as we examine the factors behind surging gun violence in Buffalo and how we can help reverse this deadly trend. And once again, the Buffalo Police Department was invited to be a part of this discussion. They declined, saying no one was available, but we do have an esteemed group of panelists. Joining us tonight is Pastor James Giles, the president and CEO of Back to Basic Ministries, Billie Webster of Buffalo Peacemakers, and Mia AYERS-GOSS of MVP. That's Most Valuable Parents. Thank you all once again for being here. We had a robust discussion, and I'm so looking forward to hearing more of your insights. Pastor Giles, I want to jump right to you. What words of wisdom do you have for other young people who could be following into a similar path as some of their peers, going down the wrong track? What do you say to them?
The things that I say to them in our programs that we have with youth, you know, I apologize to them, you know, that we somehow represent a system that has been very unfair and very disregarding to not only the needs that young developing people have, but also acknowledging some of the barriers and the traumas that they experience. So we apologize to them and kind of make a commitment to help them to navigate these atrocious systems, and that's what I call them, and put them on pathways that where the chances of success in life is going to be far greater than what happened if they're just left alone. And so in that process, that means, as Mia had brought out, you know, we have to integrate with family. We have to begin to address some of the issues that families have, you know, and because we come from that set and we know a lot of them, we've been entrenched in this community. I have been entrenched in the community of Buffalo since 1975. We know so many people, so it's okay for me to knock on the door. It's okay for me to say, listen, can you all come to my office? You know, let's talk about the future of your child.
Mia, what do you say to parents who just fear that this is beyond their control, that they've lost control of their kid? What do you say to them? What can they do?
You know, being the director of MVP gives me the opportunity to speak with many parents on a daily basis, and I tell them that there is hope. There is a chance for us to rectify this. However, we have to grab onto our children. We have to love them. We have to encourage them. We have to support them. But the first thing that I would tell them is to come join MVP so that we can do this together. Because this violence that's going on in our community, it's going to take all of us we can't eradicate it. Although we want to, there's always, unfortunately, going to be some type of violence in our society, but we can absolutely subside it and bring it down. But we have to do it together.
Well said, well said. This is a short segment, so we are going to have much more conversation on the other side of the break. Pastor Giles, Ms. Goss, Mr. Webster, thank you so much for joining us, for your thoughts on this important topic. Our Buffalo Strong conversation, crime in the Queen City, continues in just a moment. Please do stay with us. Welcome back to our Buffalo Strong conversation, crime in the Queen City, as we examine the factors behind Buffalo's surging gun violence. Joining us this evening is Pastor James Giles, the president and CEO of Back to Basics Ministries, Billie Webster with the Peacemakers, and Mia AYERS-GOSS of MVP, Most Valuable Parents. Thank you once again all for being here. I want to talk about the guns. You know, we talk so often about the issue of so many guns coming into our city from elsewhere, and how quick these kids can get their hands on guns. There are a number of gun buyback initiatives. The city of Buffalo has one. The city of Niagara Falls recently held its own one. I think the Attorney General has one as well. What are your thoughts, Billie? Do they actually address the issue?
To be honest with you, no. What's going to address the issue is when the people that's running this country will realize that the guns are the ones that's taking the lives of all these people, not just in Buffalo, all across the country. You know, these guns are what's killing people. And I've been told, oh, guns don't kill people, people kill people. But when you fluctuate so many guns in all the areas of these urban communities, the kids can get a gun quicker than they can get a book to read. And that's a problem. When you come into a neighborhood and the guns is so easy and ready to be had, and everybody got a gun. So many households that probably have a gun in the city of Buffalo, and that's a big problem. You know, guns should be laws passed where that can't happen. And the crazy part with me is about, you know where the gun's coming from. You know the cities, you know the states that they're coming from. So if you can go to the moon, you should be able to stop the gun traffic.
Oh, if only it was so easy, right? Mia, what programs or initiatives have you seen either here or in other parts of the country that seem to be making a difference specifically with this gun issue?
Well, I would love to answer your question, but before I do that, I would just first like to acknowledge our founder, the late Neil Dobbins, because our founder, Neil Dobbins, brought to the attention of this city what we call supplier side of combating gun violence. And he brought to the attention different amendments, the T-Hart Amendment, the Dickey Amendment. Well, I would say he revitalized it. And he brought to every elected official in this city, every person in our community, he made sure that we were educated on these amendments. And the reason I bring these amendments up is because we have other states that have weak gun laws, which affect what happens here. So we need to start asking the question, where did the guns come from? So yes, we can have programs that buy back guns, but then they're just going to come back. As I said earlier, as far as arresting people, you're just going to have new people that come in. You have to get to the root cause. And if the guns didn't get the illegal guns, we're not against, you know, the Second Amendment or people having, you know, the right to bear arms, but there's too many illegal guns and guns in the hands of the wrong people. So we have to start working at getting those illegal guns off our streets.
You're saying there needs to be a federal program that is working right across the country to try to get this gun situation fixed across all states, not just in New York State.